Welcome to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson. And in this series of episodes, we're looking at some major figures from the mid-20th century in Poland, people who fought for Polish independence, didn't always live to see it come true. And I'm delighted to have with me in the studio my colleague Adam Starzyński, our expert in all things Polish and historical. Adam, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you.
And one character we should look at now as part of our working towards this great love story, which we mentioned in a previous episode, is Stefan Karbonski.
Yes. In the previous episode, we spoke about the father of the daughter who was involved in this love story. For those who didn't watch that episode, we can reveal that the father was Antoni Pajdak, a socialist leader that was imprisoned, persecuted by the Stalinists after 1945. His daughter Wiesława was also arrested in 1947, sent to a Stalinist prison, where she got to know a man named Jerzy Śmiechowski. They got to know each other without ever seeing each other, as they were sitting in the cells next to each other, not in the same cell, but the cell on the other side of the wall. And through that wall, they communicated through tapping Morse code to each other. They fell in love. They got engaged in those circumstances, and they later married. So we already mentioned the story of Antoni Pajdak, and now we'll speak about Stefan Karbonski, who was the man who landed Jerzy Śmiechowski in that Stalinist cell where he got to know his future wife. Jerzy Śmiechowski himself was a soldier of the National Armed Forces, the NSZ, the nationalist faction during the Second World War of the Polish underground military movement. Stefan Karbonski, on the other hand, was a leader of the Polish Agrarian Party, the PSL. This shows the unity in many cases of the Polish underground movement, because the nationalists and the Agrarian Party, they had not been good friends before the war. Of course, the nationalists, they were more conservative force that had sided previously with the large landowners, while naturally the Agrarian Party was an interest party for the peasants and the large rural population of Poland. Stefan Karbonski was one of their top leaders, and in those years, 1945, 1946, 1947, the Polish Agrarian Party was the largest political force in Poland, and there was this attempt at the Prime Minister in exile, Stanisław Mikolajczyk, was a representative of the Polish People's Party, or the Polish Agrarian Party, and he returned from the government in exile in London to Poland. The communists, they had, of course, been put in power by the invading Red Army. They didn't have popular support. They had some popular support as they had won the war, so it was hard to argue with that. But the majority of the Polish population didn't support them, and they would never be able to take power in free and fair elections. Instead, they wanted to form a government of national unity that would be an interim government preparing the first, what they promised would be democratic elections.
Yes.
Which had naturally been promised in Yalta, but never materialized. The elections were falsified. Karbonski was one of the men who played an important role in that government of unity, but once the communists falsified that election in 1947, and in the lead up to it started an intense campaign of persecution and repression against all representatives of the Polish People's Party that didn't agree to succumb to the communists. They were being sent to lengthy prison sentences. Karbonski was about to be arrested, but he was smuggled out of Poland by Jerzy Śmiechowski and his friends from the National Armed Forces. Unfortunately, Karbonski wasn't able to escape, and he landed in that Stalinist prison where he got to know his future wife. But it also gives us a pretext to speak about Karbonski and his life, who was born in 1901 in Wielung, which was very near the Polish-German border. From a very early age, he was very patriotic. He was born in 1901. So by the time that Poland regained its independence in 1918, he was 17 years old and immediately took to arms to defend Poland's new borders, initially fighting in the Polish-Ukrainian War in 1918. Mainly for the control of the city of Lvov, as the Poles know it, or Lviv, as it is known today, as today it is located in Ukraine. After the end of the Polish-Ukrainian War, actually the Poles and the Ukrainians later allied, as there was a red menace in the east that threatened the independence of both of these nations. And instead the Polish-Bolshevik War broke out. So Korboński took part in that war as well, fought in the famous Battle of Warsaw of 1920. And once that war had reached a conclusion that was quite favorable for the Poles, as they managed to push the Soviets pretty far back east and gained quite a lot of territory in the east. Not as much as they could have taken, as the communists actually offered them more. The Soviets offered them more territory, but since the nationalist faction controlled the Polish parliament at the time, and they also controlled the peace negotiations in Riga, they decided to say thanks, but no thanks. We prefer a slightly smaller state which has a higher percentage of ethnic Poles.
Adam, as usual, the clock has defeated us. I'm going to have to stop you there, but we'll pick up the story next time. There we are. Yet again, time has defeated us, and I've had to interrupt Adam almost in mid-sentence. He'll be back next time on Poland Daily History to continue the story, and I hope you will join us. Thank you for watching.